Yo, it's Yerk, and today I'm bringing you another episode of Creative 101. And in this episode, we're going to be going over the Mutator Zone. As you guys know, in this series, we take an in-depth look at a device, teach you how to use it, go through every setting, and explain exactly what they do. By the end of this video, you'll know everything that you need to know how to use these devices in your own creative maps. But before we get started, if you guys enjoy this video at any point, don't forget to drop a like, hit subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and all that stuff. And if you want to support me, you can use code YerkYT in the item shop, and it really helps me out a lot. But let's get into this video. Okay, so this episode we're taking a look at the Mutator device. This device is a trap device, which means we can place it on any floor or wall. So when you first place the Mutator Zone down, the options are defaulted to act as a no shooting zone, which means you can't use your pickaxe or shoot any guns while you're inside the zone. But if we open up the settings, the very first setting is allow weapon fire. If we want, we can go ahead and turn that on, and now you're able to shoot while you're inside of this zone. Moving on to the next setting, allow building, works just like weapon fire. We can either turn this on or off, and if it's off, you will not be able to build while you're inside of the zone. This setting is defaulted to on, but if you want to turn it off, this is the setting to use. Now, for the next setting, zone visible in game, what that means is just do you want to be able to see the blue force field surrounding the zone or not. This is just the force field, not the base of the Mutator Zone. That's our next setting. The next setting, base visible during game, just determines whether or not you want to be able to see the pad of the Mutator Zone, this little blue thing, independent of whether or not you can see the force field. Then the next settings are width, depth, and height, and I probably don't need to explain these, but that's what we do in this series. So these determine how big or small your zone is going to be, and you can customize it from 0.5 all the way up to 100 for all three dimensions. Another pretty self-explanatory setting is enabled at game start. If you have this setting enabled, it will be on when the game starts, and if you have it disabled, it will not be on. Simple enough. Then the next two settings are affects players and affects creatures. This just means do you want the Mutator Zone to work on players/creatures or not. Now we have the safe team option, and what this option does is allow for a certain team to not be affected by the Mutator Zone. Meaning if a player on the safe team enters the zone, they're basically invisible to it and the zone will have no effect on them at all. This next option is pretty recently added, and it's pretty cool. We have pickup lifespan, and we have different time intervals that we can set this to. It can either be set to immediately, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15, all the way up to 30 seconds. And what this will do is any floor loot or items that get dropped on the floor in this zone will be deleted after being there for however long you set the time for. Then we have enabled when receiving from and disabled when receiving from, which is just how we can turn on or off the device by using some sort of trigger, just like we can on any other device. Now probably the most useful setting of this device, when someone enters, transmit on, and when someone leaves, transmit on settings. This will allow us to send a trigger on a channel each time a player enters or exits the zone. This is the most common setting used for things like weapon granting systems, tracking players for placement points, and much more. For this example, I have it set up to turn the lights on and off as I enter and exit the zone. And now for the last setting, it's very similar to the last one. It can actually track whether or not a player starts or stops emoting while inside the zone. For this example, I have it set up to play music when I start emoting and to stop playing music when I stop. And that's all the settings for the Mutator device. At the end, I always like to give a couple of examples of some things that you can do with this device so you get an idea. One thing I find them very useful for is linking them with teleporters. You can do this to spawn players anywhere in your map instead of on a spawn pad at the beginning of a game, or you can just use it as an initiating signal to teleport them to the next level. Another example is my custom loadout selector that I showed you guys in my last video. And my final example is going to be placement points, which I'm not going to get into right now because I'm working on a tutorial for you guys that should be coming out fairly soon. So if you're not, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss that. That's all I have for this video, but if you want, feel free to check out some of my other videos that are on screen now. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, stay up.